Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program, Capital Beat. After 10 days of high drama and long wait on who will be the Kerala Chief Minister, Congress High Command decided on VD Satheesan's name for the CM post. Now, till the last moment, it was believed that Party General Secretary Organization KC Venugopal would be the man of the moment. Even this morning, Rahul Gandhi met KC Venugopal for an extended meeting, but the big questions from here on: how will Congress set its house in order and tackle the repeated factionalism in states like Karnataka, Punjab, Chhattisgarh, Haryana? Now, why does the party drag such situations for days and let it become a spectacle? When the political adversary is so strong, doesn't the party look timid with such acts playing out in public? With the emergence of parties like TVK, where does Congress see itself? And finally, are the multiple power centers within the Congress High Command playing the spoiler? These are the big questions which need to be analyzed at this point of time. And joining me this evening is senior journalist and political commentator Javed Ansari. Javed, thank you so much for joining. We have TK Rajlakshmi, deputy editor of the Frontline magazine. Thank you so much, Rajlakshmi, for joining. And let me begin with Javed. There was high drama for last 10 days. Who will become the CM? Will it be KCB? Will it be Chenithala? Will it be Satheesan? Then finally, two names were zeroed down. Until today morning, there was so much of anxiety. Lots of Congress leaders themselves did not know as to who the person will be. It was only before the official announcement, before the press conference at 12, that all the TV channels started putting out VD Satheesan's name around 11:30 or so. So till 11:30, no one knew. Everybody was just guessing. Now, what does this go to show about the manner in which Congress High Command is tackling such issues?
Well, Nulu, there is no denying that Congress could have done better, ought to have done better. They need, but then in a state or in a situation where they are varying contenders, sometimes it's important to allow people to get. It's important to allow events to play themselves out, so long as you have a grip on them. They needed to reconcile the ambitions and the contradictions between the three people, and that's why perhaps it took time. You know, but it also begs the question. Mr. Yogi Adityanath was was appointed or nominated 13 days after the results came out. There are a couple of other names that I can read out, which took much longer. Hemanta Biswa Sarma was sworn in just a day before Satishan's name was announced. So why is Congress party held to a different yardstick compared to the others? Yes, they ought to have done better. The optics were marred by this delay, and this gave a field day to sections of the media who are looking for any excuse to go hammer and tongs at the Congress. Having done that now, the big challenge before the Congress is to ensure that this government is up and running, it hits the ground running, and it functions because it needs to deliver on this promise of good governance. Yes, it would have done them a world of good if they were able to wrap this up in 4 days, but they didn't. I don't think the heavens have fallen and that everything has been lost suddenly. Mr. Venugopal still continues to hold some very important positions. He's the General Secretary organization, and there are a lot of people who believe that he's by far the most powerful General Secretary organization that the Congress party has seen in recent times. He's also the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, the most important post that always goes to the leading opposition party. So he holds, and above all, he has the eyes, he has the ear of arguably the most powerful person whose voice carries the most weight in the Congress party, that is Rahul Gandhi. So despite all that, if they've chosen Satheesan, it takes a fair amount of courage, a fair amount of what one would call objectiveness, because they believe that it is in their interest, that Satheesan was the face of the people, is the choice of the people. He may not have, had it not been for the interference of Mr. KC Gopal by virtue of his being the General Secretary in charge of organization, plus he was sitting in on ticket distribution, etc. If there had been a level playing field as far as the ticket distribution is concerned, I'm not so sure if Mr. Venugopal and would have got the support of the number of MLAs that he has. So
Yes.
I think they took a late decision, but they've taken a wise one. There are also those who will argue that Mr. Ramesh Chenitala, why just Venugopal? Mr. Ramesh Chenitala will feel done in. He's the senior most. uh, Earlier, when the Congress had come to power in 2011,
In fact, he has
he,
already expressed his dismay to the Congress High Command, and apparently he has told the Congress High Command that he doesn't want to be the part of the cabinet, the Kerala cabinet.
well, obviously, because Satheesan is junior to him, but Ramesh Chenitala, at the end of the day, is a quintessential congressman. He's come up from the ranks, NSY, Youth Congress, and then the Congress. And while he has genuine reasons to feel aggrieved, everybody believes that Mr. Chanitala will not go beyond a point, and that eventually he will keep the party's interest in mind, and eventually fall in line and accept the decision of the High Command.
Right. But Javed, do you think that okay, the Kerala CM issue has been settled, but as far as the wars, the Congress wars are concerned, do you think they have ended? When I'm talking about factionalism, I'm talking about accountability, because many people say that KC Venugopal is one general secretary in Congress under whose tenure so many elections Congress has lost. So is it now not time for Congress to do a rethink as far as the post of the General Secretary organization is concerned?
Look, losing elections, you cannot lay the blame entirely at his door. There are many factors. Factionalism is one of them. But KC Venugopal is, there's the ones who calls he is at best his master's voice. He carries out whatever Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Mr. Kharge want him to, those decisions that they want to implement, he does that job for them. So entirely blame him for the rot or for the losses, the string of losses that the Congress has suffered, will, to my mind, not be fair. Yes, there is a crying need for Congress to infuse some fresh, young blood, new faces across the board in the organization, whether it's not just as General Secretary organization, but across the board, state presidents, uh, CLP leaders, members of the working committee, and general secretaries, including General Secretary organization. But to
Right.
just single out one man to my mind, would not be entirely fair.
Right.
But yes,
Yeah. Uh, uh, just put out the tweet by KC Venugopal, which we were just showing a short while back. This is 2:41 p.m. where the tweet has come in. He says, best wishes to my dear colleague VD Satheesan on being chosen as the next CM of Kerala. We all welcome the Congress High Command's decision. The party is supreme. We will work together for the welfare and development of Kerala. So finally, the Kerala issue is settled. But Raj Lakshmi, what next? Now, what are the challenges which the Congress needs to face now and should be prepared for? When the political adversary in front of Congress is so powerful, it almost applies guerrilla style of tactics in contesting the elections. What does a party like Congress do? Because we still see that I wouldn't say that the party is in a state of inertia, but the party is not moving enough to counter the kind of politics which the adversaries in front of them are doing.
See, in Kerala, I don't think they would in fact suffer any kind of a major challenge from the BJP at least, and since they have a comfortable mandate, and since the Congress itself has got a comfortable mandate, I mean apart from the UDF as a whole, so I think they will be able to sort of sail smoothly in the the next 5 years at least, as far as Kerala is concerned. I mean, I don't know the rest of the country because UP is going to be there
No,
next
I'm
year.
talking
So
about the larger question of
yes.
accountability, of pulling up people, and also getting in new people, like what Javed said, that we need fresh blood. But is that, I mean, is enough being done on those fronts? Because we hardly have time. It's already 2026. Next year, we have UP elections in Uttarakhand, Punjab, Goa. Then you have Karnataka the next year. And after that is the Lok Sabha elections.
Well, it will have to go. I think the mix of experience as well as novelty to an extent, and as experience has shown, in Rajasthan, etc. If you opt for a new face and ignoring the older and more experienced, experienced with leadership, then the factionalism comes out in the open. So it's a very tight, balancing act that it has to do, because obviously there are aspirants are going to come up. I mean, there's going to be anti-incumbency against the incumbent in governments. In fact the BJP may be sitting there and so there I think the Congress will have to put its house in order, and I think Mr. Venugopal has a fairly big task in front of him, cut out in front of him as AICC organization. So he so I but it's not just him. I think the party as a whole will have to work on these things, because here in Kerala, where in fact a good mandate was secured, it took them a fair amount of time to settle on the question of who will be CM, because there were factions. In fact, let's not sort of deny that. It was quite clear. We had supporters of those factions, coming out on the streets, putting out posters, and lobbying. So in fact the high command had to tell them to stop all those activities, because it was giving a bad name to the party, etc. So I'm saying that in situations where it is sort of coming to power in a very smooth sense, there itself, there are certain hurdles that it has found to sort of have to deal with. So I just assume that it might be difficult, in the northern and in the Hindi belt states particularly, because there I think the graph of the Congress has been declining. It has to, I think, contend with dealing with regional parties. It has to be more, accommodative. So I think a big organizational task. And obviously, sort of rejuvenating the party itself in those states is an important thing that it will have to work on, and it will have to infuse, sort of energy into the extent leadership, and maybe get some new faces. So it will have to be like a mix of old and the new, because if you give too much importance to one, you risk antagonizing the other set, the other lot. So I think this balancing will always have to be done by the party. Yeah.
But Javed, when this drama around the Kerala CM was unfolding over the last 10 days, we saw bites of Kerala leaders, the state leaders, saying that we are a democratic party and we are trying to consult everyone. And then that's when the consensus will evolve, and then a name will be finalized. And this often has been said in the case of Punjab, in the case of Karnataka, in the case of several states where factionalism has come up. This has been an often repeated statement coming in from the Congress leaders and the in charges. Now, uh, is this too much of a democratic display? Also, at some sort of a disadvantage for Congress, because then it gives a handle to parties like BJP to say that, look, this is what is happening in Congress. The command center is not in control. This is what generally is heard.
Look, the Congress is not in a position, the Congress leadership is not in a position to act in the manner in which its counterparts in the BJP do, for various reasons. They are in power. They are in a position to dispense favors. They are in a position to do harm. They are in a position to deny favors. This is not the case with the Congress leadership. The Congress leadership's hand has been weakened by the fact that they suffered a string of losses. So that high command, the high command does not command the kind of fear or awe that it once did. And therefore, they have to do a fine balancing act. Sometimes it takes a fair amount of it takes a long time for them to come to a decision. But the Congress, just take your mind back to the time when the Congress was in power at the center, at the time of Mrs. Indira Gandhi or even Rajiv Gandhi. Whatever the High Command decided was akin to God's word. Everybody just fell in line. Whether you liked it or lumped it, you took it on the chin and then moved on because there was no option. Right now, that is not the case. So, bearing in mind the
So
ground
are you
realities,
clearly saying, Javed, are you clearly saying that now we have a setup in Congress where there within the high command there are multiple people who are taking the call, and we do not know from where the actual command is coming?
no, I am not saying that. What I'm saying is that the Congress leadership's hand has been weakened. It's the same Congress leadership, the Mallikarjun Kharge and Rahul Gandhi duo, would be a lot more decisive have if they were able to string together a couple of victories.
Yeah.
Assuming, for argument's sake, that they win the next 3, 4 elections, their hand will be strengthened, their voice will carry weight. Whatever they say, people will have to follow or risk, incurring the wrath of the leadership. That is not the case at the moment. You cannot assume, you cannot act in a manner that Mrs. Indira Gandhi did or Rajiv Gandhi did because the ground realities are different. Those were different times. These are different times. You have, and there is a lot of people in the Congress and senior Congress leaders also believe that perhaps Rahul Gandhi is just too democratic. He allows discussions to go on and on and on, and then at the 11th hour, there is a case perhaps that maybe they ought to act much firmer and more decisively. But then, as as the former Congress president, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi once told us that as Congress president, you are privy to a lot more. You are subjected. There are many more things that you need to consider, bear in mind before you take a decision than those sitting on the outside. Perhaps there is more than a grain of truth to what she said.
Right. But even in this particular case, and the choice of Kerala Chief Minister, finally, the final meeting which happened was between Mallikarjun Kharge, Rahul Gandhi, and Sonia Gandhi, and it is they who ultimately decided. Now, who is taking the actual decision within the High Command itself? That is also not very clear. And then the general impression goes out that there are multiple command centers within the High Command. Javed, what is your experience? Does that play like a spoiler, or is it for an advantage for a party like Congress?
While there is no denying the fact that the Congress leadership certainly does not wield the kind of power it once did, but then there is to believe that there are multiple power centers and that Rahul Gandhi and Mr. Kharge or Sonia Gandhi can be pressurized or arm twisted by factions within the Congress is also not true. Ultimately, they take the decisions. In this case, also the decision was taken by Mr. Kharge and Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Whenever things get into a position where you get into a situation where where this duo cannot work it out, then Mrs. Gandhi only steps in at the last moment to, as in the case with Stalin, she stepped in and ensured that the Congress got 2 more seats. Similarly, in the case of Kerala also, when it's only when Mr. Kharge and Mr. Rahul Gandhi are unable to do something and you require that extra push or that final push, does Mrs. Gandhi step in. But that's very seldom that happens.
No, but then there are several states in Kerala. In the case of Kerala, they could take a decision in 10 days. But then there are states like Karnataka where for years DK Shiv Kumar has been waiting. And I mean, every 3 months or 4 months, we keep hearing that DK Shiv Kumar supporters are raising their flag of protest and they are protesting in Assam and Telangana. And all of that keeps happening. So, how does one contain that? Is the Congress High Command able to contain these spectacles which play out often?
The
Javi.
Congress High Command made a cardinal mistake by going in for this 2.5 years formula. This does not work in politics. This smacks of indecisiveness. This is a clear testament of their hand being weakened. They ought to have put their foot down. Perhaps it was lack of experience. At time Rahul Gandhi said, okay, let's just paper over the differences. For now, let's deal with the problem. No, it just doesn't happen. Once somebody becomes chief minister, seldom do people leave. They often go out kicking and screaming, and that's the situation that you're seeing in Karnataka. That's the situation we saw in in, in Rajasthan, where the Congress, where the leadership wanted to change Ashok Gehlot and put Mr. Sachin Pilot, a fresh, young, bright face, but Mr. Gehlot forced up a spanner in the works, and we know what happened. There were
No, but
disastrous consequences.
Ravid, allow me to interrupt you, but it seems that the senior leadership of the Congress drags on issues like these. Now, look at what happened in Chhattisgarh between Bhupesh Baghel and T.S. Singh Dev. And there are several examples. Karnataka is one example.
So this is the mistake to make. This
Yes,
50-50 business doesn't work. This is not a lottery. It doesn't work anywhere. Cite me an example where it has worked. It doesn't. It was a mistake to go in for this 50-50 business.
right,
There is no point in kicking the can down the road that 2.5 years later we'll address the issue. No, if there is a problem, address it here and now. That's the
right,
that's it. That's the thumb rule of politics. You
right.
cannot
Now,
push issues. Always keep pushing the can down the road. Keep reflecting the views.
no, I think you're absolutely right that this 2.5 year rotational CM formula doesn't work, and it hasn't worked in many states. But do you think, Raj Lakshmi, Congress is going to learn from its mistakes? Now, in the case of Kerala, I'm sure Rahul Gandhi hasn't promised a 2.5 year rotational CM to VD Satheesan, and then after 2.5 years, KC Venugopal will be the CM. I'm sure this formula hasn't been worked out. But what do you think Rahul Gandhi must have told KC Venugopal? Because there was an extended meeting in the morning also at Rahul Gandhi's residence where KC Venugopal met Rahul. I'm sure KC Venugopal would have been disappointed because he was also waiting to become the chief minister. There were posters and banners put up in support. And till yesterday evening, every TV channel kept on saying that he is the biggest front runner. He is number one in the CM race. Now to from number one now he's where he was. So what do you think would have ensued between Rahul Gandhi and KC Venugopal this morning?
I don't know, Nilu. I mean, what kind of a peace offering must have been made to Mr. Venugopal? I mean that is up for speculation, really. But I'm sure he's not. I mean, he wouldn't be very happy with the situation because he was clearly a contender, as was Mr. Chanitala. But I guess since Mr. Venugopal has been at some point, a union minister too, MOS he was, and he's enjoyed a certain proximity to the Gandhi family. He still does, So I think that still could be a source of comfort to him that he still has the
No, but
confidence
many
of
many
Gandhi.
news websites were also reporting that one of the biggest factors why Rahul Gandhi had to do a rethink on KC Venugopal was because they did not want another by-election for the Lok Sabha seat
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
so that was
yeah.
something which was not acceptable to
Yeah,
Congress
yeah. In fact, a by-election for the state assembly as well as for the Lok Sabha
as well
seat,
as
which
yeah.
which he would have had to vacate. And yes, I think there was some, I think, lack of confidence also, whether they would win, the Alapura seat in case he sort of vacated it, and that if someone else were to would contest that from. Anyway, these are things which have been talked about. But as Javed says, because the center is weak, you see, because then all the state satraps, they begin to act up, and once when they begin to act up, and there are in fact a plethora of such satraps in every state, whether it's MP, Chhattisgarh, I think barring UP probably, and of course, Karnataka, we are seeing it out in the open, really, and so these and so these understandings are, arrived at. It's like a make peace plan. Okay, look, 2.5 years, you be CM, and then the next 2.5 years. Okay, and the other guy is obviously
We are
restless.
forgetting
They
Punjab.
want,
We are
yeah,
forgetting Punjab.
Exactly. Punjab too. So it's not easy at all, and obviously the I think the weakness of the center is exploited. It's exploited by the state satraps, and I think here I think a lack of ideology is also the problem, Nilu. I was saying this yesterday also. I think you can crack the whip. I mean, if it is a disciplined party, if the goals of the party are the party as a whole, as a collective are clear. I think come what may, of course, I think the BJP also has its share of factions and factionalism. In fact, we get to sort of hearing about them, and but it's not really out in the open, as much as is there in the Congress. Even if the Congress is out of power, it's still talked about in terms of the factionalism, in fact, within it. But as I said, if the party and all its people in it had had a very clear idea of what it stands for, and what are our collective goals. And here, if the goal is to sort of defeat the BJP, okay, and to get a secular democratic form of government in place. I mean, I think all these things would ideally be secondary, but I think power is something which if you've sort of tasted it once, then it's like an addiction. You want to sort of
No, but
continually go over it.
right. There's another very crucial question when it comes to the way Congress operates. Javed, I would like you to answer that question. That it only seems that Rahul Gandhi is the only one who's at the forefront, taking on the fight, countering BJP on each and every point. But it seems that the party as a whole is either they are not in consonance with Rahul Gandhi, either they are not able to match up with his speed, or either they are not getting enough space to walk. What is the real problem according to you? Because how long will Rahul Gandhi continue to keep the fight on? There have to be others who have to pitch in.
Look, Rahul Gandhi is the face of the Congress party. So who's going to lead the fight? If you are a claimant for prime ministership, if you are the de facto leader, you can't expect me to lead that fight, no? Yes, Rahul Gandhi, as the leader, as the face, as the contender, as the prime minister in waiting, has to lead, as the leader of the opposition, he has to lead that fight. It's as simple as that. Yes, there is a there is a lot of truth in what you say. That perhaps there is need for greater concentration. There is a need to take the entire party along. As we saw in the 2019 elections on the Chaukidar Chor issue. Not everybody was convinced, and not everybody, because everybody was not convinced, therefore they, at best, they joined the battle half-heartedly. You need to be able to
No, but we
discuss
are not
issues
even
that
sure. We are not even sure whether the entire party stands for which issues. Now, take for example, of course, Chaukidar Chor Hai is one example. What about vote chori campaign, which Rahul Gandhi did press conferences, but vote chori issue also has fizzled out. I mean, time and again, once or twice here and there, you'll hear people
you know,
talking.
you know the reason why it is fizzled out, because the Congress doesn't have an organization. Barring Kerala,
Yeah,
and, and perhaps Karnataka to some extent, the Congress party doesn't have an organization. If you don't have an organization, who's going to carry forward that battle? Rahul Gandhi goes. He did that huge uh, walkathon. It generated tremendous amount of momentum. Similarly, he went to Bihar and he did a car rally. Again, it generated tremendous amount of enthusiasm, momentum, but there was nobody, the organization was not in place to carry that, to take that message to the grassroots. So you need
right.
to be able to encash that momentum. And for that, you need an organization. To build an organization, you need to, organizations are built brick by brick and it takes years for the longest time. Ever since Mr. Rajiv Gandhi became Prime Minister, he kept lamenting the fact, Prime Minister and AICC chief, he kept lamenting the fact that the Congress organization was weak and it needed to be built up, rebuilt. Narasimha Rao said the same thing. Mrs. Gandhi said the same thing. Rahul Gandhi said the same thing. Mr. Kharge says the same thing. But it begs the question, who has prevented them from building up the organization. You can't lay the blame at the BJP's door or the ED's door or at CPM's door or somebody else's door.
Absolutely.
What has prevented you from building up the organization? Look at look at the Congress Party state in UP, Bihar, Bengal. In these states, which together account for 120 plus Lok Sabha seats, the Congress is at best a minor player, a peripheral player. It's dependent on its allies. The alliance with the RJD in Bihar is hanging by a thread. Is there only in name. The in UP they are at the whims and fancies of the Samajwadi Party. And the Congress must also realize that if you haven't worked on the ground, you cannot expect the allies to do the heavy lifting, and yet you will fight the lion's share of the suit. The Congress must cannot demand seat disproportionate to their strength. In these states, the Congress must wake up to the fact that it is at best a peripheral player.
But like what recently said, and these are my last two questions, one to you, Javed, and one to Raj Lakshmi. Javed, like recently, Prime Minister, I mean, though he has said it often, but after the Bengal election results and the five-state election results were declared, he said Congress is a parasitic party. Now with TVK in the forefront in Tamil Nadu, it will ride on TVK. Now that's the way Prime Minister looks at. But how is Congress going to reinvent itself vis-a-vis as a party alone and also its equation with India Alliance? What is happening to India Alliance? It seems that it's in a complete disarray at the moment, especially after what we've seen in Tamil Nadu.
If there is an entity, political entity called India Alliance, I certainly don't know of it. I'm not aware of it. It exists only in name. I do not think,
But
especially after
it's
Bihar
supposed
election,
to be headed by Congress. It's supposed to be headed by Congress.
that's fine. But the Congress Party's relations with the allies should be better, ought to be better, and for that the Congress Party also needs to take its share of the blame. After you see the problem is in the India Alliance, everybody says, okay, we must sacrifice no matter what it takes to defeat the BJP. But when they say we must sacrifice, they mean everybody else should sacrifice barring themselves. Each party believes the same. The regional parties are unwilling to cede an inch to the Congress in the states where they are powerful. The same is the case with the Congress party where it is powerful. There is though that contradiction. So in the states, those contradictions will continue. At the center, perhaps they can come together. That is the problem. And as
Right.
after Bihar, after what happened in Bihar, I think Rahul Gandhi's mind has drifted from the India Alliance. It's no longer a priority. He
Yes.
believes that unless the Congress party learns to stand on its own feet, because he expected that the RJD to be a lot more flexible and a lot more accommodating.
Yes.
He believed he had done a lot of hard work there in preparing the ground, but they were not. So
Right.
therefore, the same is the case with DMK. He believes that there are many others who believe that DMK should have been a lot more accommodating as far as sharing power is concerned. But they were not. They were very inflexible. Every time the DMK has been a part of the central, the opposition has come to power. DMK has been a part of the government.
Right.
They they demand a share of the power pie at the center, but are unwilling to share power in the state, which now Congress believes is unfair.
Right.
And therefore,
Well,
again, they made a mistake, a huge error of judgment. If they had to go with the TVK, they should have gone in the first instance. They should have bitten the bullet and had an electoral pre-poll alliance. They would have
absolutely.
won a lot more seats, and consequently, they would have had a much bigger share of the spoils as in government.
Absolutely. So this brings me to the final question, Raj Lakshmi, that is Congress really confused at the moment about whether to go alone for 2029, though it's quite far away right now, 2029, because next year also and the year after that, there's a next set of elections. But since the time the recent results have come, people have been saying that, the regional parties almost look decimated. They've almost got finished. And now the real fight is going to be between Congress and the BJP. And just speaking by what Javed said, that Rahul Gandhi, it seems, has moved away from India alliance. So does it go to show that now the Congress's biggest plan or the next plan would be to consolidate those 100 seats which it has got in 2024 and work maybe on the next 50 or another 100? Is that
Yeah.
what the plan looks like now?
Yeah, I don't think it can really afford to go that alone, Nilu. I mean, it can't afford to have that ekla chalore approach, unless, of course, it has built its organization, unless it has done a lot of campaigns, and rallies around issues. I mean, it can't even organize a single farmers rally. For instance, let's say if we were to have say a kisan, or maybe say a workers rally. It's always the left which is able to mobilize the numbers. I mean, it's a different thing that they're not able to convert that into votes. But I think so. I think here is where the organizational part comes in, where in fact Javed is also referring to, and the Congress has to be seen taking up issues. It can't just do it sporadically. So hold a few protests in front of say a random uh, BJP office, etc. It has to do it consistently, and it has to be seen
No,
doing it.
but there's a $1 million catch over there, that when we say that Congress needs to pick up issues and do it consistently, but here you have a party like BJP for whom every day the issue is changing. Now, how does the opposition center itself around a particular issue? Say, for example, you had a vote chori issue, then some farmers issue will come up. Now these seven appeals, the Iran crisis, all these things came over, and then the question around Adani, all that is there. But Congress still is not able to fix itself on a particular issue and say that this is one issue which can get us votes, and maybe if we go with this issue to the people, it would get translated into votes for Congress.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is something that seems to be lacking.
See, all those things are interconnected and interlinked, Niru. It's not Niru. In fact, if you can't pick out one thing as being independent of the other. I mean, the in fact the communal agenda of the BJP is in fact closely linked with its neoliberal in fact agenda. It's not something which is separate. The two of them go in tandem. It goes in hand. In fact, manipulating institutions, and then your money power, and then you have the all these the communal agenda. Everything is intertwined. So there has to be some kind of an approach that has been worked on how to deal with these things, and that and that you have to sort of put it in front of the people in such a way to show that all these things are are interlinked, and interconnected. The fact that the government has not been able to do, in fact, anything with the people. I mean, as far as the fuel crisis is concerned, I mean, had it not kowtowed to America as well as Israel, and had taken a stand at that point, as far as the war on Iran is concerned, maybe these things would not have come to pass. I mean, come on, we are a in fact, the biggest democracy. I mean, we could have, taken a strong stand on that, and who knows, the outcome, may have been different. So I'm saying that all these things have to sort of coalesce at some point, and that all these issues can be made into one big issue, and sort of taken in the form of, let's say, like a unified campaign. In fact, I mean, I think whether it does it solo or it does it in conjunction with the opposition parties, I think it should do it in conjunction with the other parties, and it should sort of take the lead, because 2029 is not really far away,
Yeah,
and the kind of solidarity that was shown in 2024, and the kind of outcomes that came. I mean, I do not think that the Congress really sort of made, I mean, say 100 on its own.
right.
It did come, because of that coordinated effort. Whether it been in Bihar, whether it been in UP, whether it been in southern states, everywhere. I mean, of course, I think barring Kerala, and of course, but I think it can be worked upon. But
Absolutely.
but the inclination and interest has to be there, that you are going to sort of take on a formidable, in fact, opponent, who has in fact who has
Yeah,
money and all the resources, that
right.
that it can muster. Yeah.
But I'm glad that we did a 40 minutes, almost 40 minutes deep dive into what is really going to happen to Congress if it doesn't take on the challenges. But I'm sure now Congress would be getting ready for the victory celebrations. If you contrast it with BJP, Prime Minister runs the very same day, doing a victory speech from the party headquarters, but we haven't seen those kind of celebrations actually come up. So maybe now for the swearing in, Congress will gear up for the big day, and we all hope that whatever corrective steps are needed, Congress would take. And I'm sure these kind of discussions would be happening internally also within the Congress leadership. We'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Javed Ansari, TK Rajlakshmi. Thank you so much for joining.